All right, Lawrence, thank you. Today, State Senator Roderick Wright will officially resign. Wright was convicted on felony charges after it was revealed he does not live in the district he represents.
Political analyst Melissa Griffin Caen is here with more of the rules he broke and I guess what happens now. And you said this guy was a likable fella too, right?
Yeah, honestly, for those of us who have to sit and watch these lengthy hearings, he was one of the more colorful characters.
Charismatic.
He really was. He will be missed by people who have to watch lengthy, boring hearings. So yes, as Michelle said, Roderick Wright will resign today because a jury found that he did not live in the district he represents. This is the rule in the state legislature. But members of Congress do not have to live in the district they represent. In fact, we have two congressmen running right now in California, Democrat Mike Honda and Republican Tom McClintock, who freely admit that they do not live in their district. So what gives? Whenever we talk about this, people say, why do some politicians have to live in their districts or go to jail, and some clearly don't? The short answer is it's state law versus federal law. In California, in the very first state constitution we ever had, it was ratified in 1879. And even in that very first constitution, there was an article that said state legislators have to live in their own district. And that article is still in our state constitution today. But when it comes to Congress, we have to look at the federal constitution. And right there in Article 1 is the requirements to run for Congress. You have to be 25 years old, a U.S. citizen for 7 years, and live in the state that you represent. There is no requirement that you live in the district that you represent.
So why did the Founding Fathers require that representatives live in their districts?
Well, they didn't, because at the time there was no such thing as a congressional district, right? In the U.S. Constitution, it just says, here's how many congressmen you get. It doesn't actually tell states how to elect them. So some states invented districts, and some states elected their representatives in one big statewide election. In fact, it wasn't until relatively recently, in 1967, that Congress passed a law requiring states to use congressional districts. No more at-large districts. And it's been a big party, of course, ever since.
I guess so. So Wright is out. What about his seat? What happens there?
Well, so two assembly members have already decided that they are going to run for his seat. In fact, within minutes, it is reported, within minutes of Senator Wright saying he was going to step down, two assemblymen said that they were going to run for his seat. There will be an election in about 4 months or so, a special election to replace Senator Wright, who has a 90-day jail sentence beginning in October.
Wow. Okay.
Well, one more question before you go. If you have time,
sure.
Can Congress or lawmakers in California, they add a requirement that Congress people live in their districts?
Right. People want to say, why don't we pass a law making this living in your district a requirement for Congress people? And the truth is, you can't. As you might imagine, in California, we tried to do this. Back in 1977, we passed a state law that would require congressmen to live in their districts, and it was struck down. And the reason it was struck down is because there's a line of Supreme Court precedent that says those three things, those, be 25, be a U.S. citizen, live in the state. That's it. You can't add anything else to that list. And states that tried got their law struck down. So unless we amend the U.S. Constitution, which has to be approved by Congress, then we are stuck with the status quo as it is.
But it makes sense. If you're going to run for office, probably a good idea you know your neighbors and your constituents.
Well,
right?
and they do make a big deal out of it in the campaigns. I mean, McClintock's opponents are making a big deal of the fact he doesn't live in the district, as is Ro Khanna, who's running against Mike Honda. So it's not to say you can't suffer from it if you don't live in your district. You just have to rely on the newspapers, I guess, for that.
Okay.
All right, Melissa, thank you so much.